Okay, good afternoon or good morning, depending where you are in Australia, and welcome to our Coffee Microcaps results wrap for this week. If anybody is joining us for the first time, you're very welcome to this morning's event, and we will get underway shortly. I'm just going to run through a couple of intro slides and a few housekeeping and admin bits and pieces, and then we'll get straight into it. First of all, I'd like to mention RAS Research as a Service, who are our sponsors here for all our events at Coffee Microcaps. If you are looking for some institution grade research on small and microcap names, please do check out their website for free resources for companies that they cover. And they also have recently launched a subscription service where you can get some additional content for a small monthly or annual fee. Compliance and disclaimer slide, and very welcome to anybody from ASIC who's joining us this morning. For people who might be joining us for the first time, the companies we tend to have on here are capped under 300 million, our definition of a microcap. Generally are in revenue, approaching cash flow break even, or indeed are already profitable. We tend not to have companies from the resources and biotech on here, what I like to call industrial microcaps, which kind of covers all the other sectors: financial services, industrial companies, healthcare, consumer products businesses. Yeah, kind of anything that kind of falls outside of resources and biotech. Structured this morning's webinar, we've got one company joining us this morning. We'll keep it to kind of 30 minutes, a 20-minute preso and 10 minutes of Q&A. If you do have any questions for our presenter this morning, please type them in the Q&A box rather than the chat function. It just makes it easier for me to moderate the questions. Please note this webinar is being recorded and will be on the Coffee Microcaps YouTube channel tomorrow morning. And you can also catch our event from last week with Intelligent Monitoring Systems and Immuron, as well as a host of other videos. And we've been doing a lot of fund manager interviews as well. So if you're looking for microcap stocks to keep an eye on over reporting season, maybe check some of those out. And you can follow us pretty much on all the socials, Twitter, LinkedIn, and I do write a free monthly newsletter that will be going out next week. I'm delighted to be welcoming back AML3D, and Sean Ebert is joining us live from Adelaide this morning, hence my afternoon morning, given it's the afternoon here in Sydney and the morning in Adelaide still. Sean, I am going to stop sharing my screen, and then if you could please pull up your deck, I will let you know once I can see it. Yeah, I can see the cover slide of your presentation now,
Awesome.
Sean, so you can take it away
Okay,
whenever you're ready, mate.
great. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for having me. It's great to be back. So what I'll do is just give you an overview of the company first before we get into the 4C results. Just as a reminder, AML3D is a combination of welding, metallurgical science, and robotics. And we bring that together into a system which we call the ARCEMY system. It is one of the largest open-air turnkey 3D printing systems in the world. We have patented our technology, and we have patents in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and right throughout Europe. And we're in the process of patenting our technology in the US. In terms of the type of parts that we produce large-scale complex industrial parts. So we typically produce parts for operating use on things like submarines and frigates at that end of the industry. So our key sort of sectors that we operate in are defense, oil and gas, and aerospace predominantly. In terms of our systems, they're deployable anywhere in the world, and you can deploy them at the point of need. So it becomes very energy or carbon efficient to be able to deploy and manufacture parts exactly at the point of need for the customer. A good example of a part that we produced was this high pressure valve. You'll see that that was actually printed and ended up at about 1.1 ton. And then it was machined back to its finished form at about 940 kilos. So it was really quite an interesting part for the subsea oil and gas sector. Now, in terms of the 4Cs, we've had continued growth in the company with about 4.5% increase on our customer receipts, up to 8.67 million. We have an R&D investment program where we're investing $2.4 million into doing R&D, and that's up significantly from about 0.59 the previous year. We've established a technology center in the US. So this is an equivalent footprint sized facility in the US compared to our Australian facility of about 1,200 square meters. We have an extremely strong balance sheet where we've raised about 28.3 million or 83 million in November 24, and that was net of fees. We're sitting on about 30 million or 30.4 million in cash. And in terms of our runway, we have about 66 estimated quarters of funding. So we've got substantial cash runway, which gives us sort of multi-year runway for growth and supporting the growth in the US, UK, and Australia and other markets. We're pleased to say that we have 9 million in backlog rolling over from FY26, which underpins the growth of the FY26 year. And we embarked on a fairly detailed advocacy campaign by partnering with a company called Bondi Partners, which is Joe Hockey's advocacy group in the US. So that's brought our brand name into the not only government circles, but into very senior levels of defence. And then finally, we've tripled the reach in terms of the addressable market for our technology. So originally we were in US submarine industrial-based programs. Now we're looking to target things like surface fleet and munitions. In terms of being at the right place at the right time, so we're rapidly scaling up in the US. So back in the 2023 was when we first entered the US defence market. We had plans for setting up a facility in the US in Ohio, and we initiated that plan in April 2024. In November 24, we undertook a capital raise of about 30 million from the market, and we allocated about 12 million of that capital to double the capacity in the US market. We opened the technology center sort of in a soft launch in December 24. And we did a final sort of grand opening in June 25. Pleased to say that over the course of the last few years, we've signed up in excess of $19 million worth of contracts in the US market. Really pleased with that because we've been classed, according to Austrade, as being one of the largest exporters under AUKUS, which is a great thing to be recognised for. The US growth is underpinned by a manufacturing license agreement with Blue Forge, and that allows us to access drawings and data on manufactured parts for nuclear attack submarine programs, which is really quite an amazing achievement for an Australian company to be able to do that. We're hoping for a share of the 951 million in capital, which Blue Forge has been awarded, and that was specifically around improving and expanding the US Navy manufacturing base. Like I mentioned earlier, we've tripled our defence market access by looking at expanding into surface ships, missiles, as well as submarines, which are already in. And lastly, we're pleased to say that we've just recently won a $1.2 million contract for an ARCEMY system sale with Austal. And that marks our third system sale for Austal US, which will be located in Danville in the US Centre of Excellence. In terms of the additive manufacturing government defence plans, so the US government has a policy called the National Defence Authorization Act, and that identifies national security priorities for defence forces. Now, for the first time in 2025, Wire Additive Technology has been named and listed as one of the technologies to be used for the production of additive produced parts at large scale, and that's right across to be used right across the defence forces. So that's a really quite a great recognition of where our technology is now headed, and we've been a big advocate for that. Next is US government is prioritising shipbuilding manufacturing over cost and schedule. So what they're looking to do is now fast track the production of parts. As we know, the submarine industrial base needs to move from 1.2 subs a year in production to 2.3. So that's quite a big step up. And as a result, they're now focusing on schedule rather than cost, which is great for additive. Just a great example of that, which I might pause for a minute, is we produced a part for the submarine program, which was taking 2.5 years to produce under a cast model, and we produced it in about 16 weeks. So you could see that there's a sort of dramatic reduction in speed to market, or improvement in speed to market. Next is brand advocacy. So as I mentioned, with Bondi Partners, we've really got our name sort of well known and our brand positioned well with US military and government. Like I mentioned, we've tripled the accessibility to the markets that we're after in terms of defence. And finally, we're just waiting for the release of the funding under the continuous resolution, which we're expecting to be released after the big, beautiful bill was approved in the US. So in terms of mapping the market, we're quite strong in and well known in the submarine sector. What we did on our last trip into the US, or my last trip into the US, was actually explore a few other areas. In particular, we met with the PEOs of land systems for vehicles and artillery, TACOM, and also NavAir. In terms of our findings on that trip, we realised that NavAir actually have quite a progressive additive manufacturing program, and it's predominantly sort of linked to powder bed fusion technology. But now they're looking at other forms of additive technology. We expect that their budgets will hopefully sort of open up further when NavAir becomes a part of the marine industrial base in 2026. So we're looking forward to that event occurring. Secondly, we met with the program executive officers of land systems for the US Marine Corps, and that was quite a progressive discussion, because we're now looking at parts for vehicle production for vehicles. And one area that they're in particular interested in is a system for WAM in terms of putting it into the field. In terms of the government engagement and getting our name out and about, again, like I mentioned with Bondi Partners, we met with Senator Bernie Moreno for Ohio. He's got a very strong relationship with the Defence Undersecretary Elbridge Colby. We met with the Senate Armed Services Committee and the House Armed Services Committee. Both of them hold the pen on the NDAA. So they've been very positive and proactive in terms of incorporating language and suggestions around having and expanding the words on how wire arc technology can be used in and also Representative Amelia Sykes, who's the manufacturing caucus in Ohio, came to visit us. So at this stage, we're waiting for the release of those funds from the CR. We also noticed that in the big beautiful bill, which was released and passed, there's about 500 million in there for advanced manufacturing so we're looking forward to that coming out. The other thing that we noticed through our government sort of networks is they're now starting to form line items in these budgets, specifically around prioritizing additive technology. And that's really showing that the technology is being used and is progressing in terms of its use in defence. In terms of leveraging our position and moving forward, we're going to continue to advocate for our defence policy and appropriations. We're navigating political impacts of the US shipbuilding. So as we see Make Shipbuilding Great Again comes to the forefront, we want to be in the forefront of that and capture whatever opportunities we can to also not only just do defence shipbuilding, but also commercial shipbuilding as well. We're also going to leverage our technology center in the US. The reason we built that center in the US was to service the US market. And we had a very successful opening of that facility. And since then, we've had a number of inquiries come in to utilize that facility, not only for contract manufacturing, but also for the sale of systems. We're looking to leverage our existing relationships across the MIB. And just on that, we've just appointed Jay Stephanie, used to be the head of the Marine Industrial Base program, to the board of AML3D US. So he'll be a very key advocate for us in terms of guiding us through navigating through the complexities of the Marine Industrial Base as we go forward. In terms of other opportunities, I will mention though that we have opened up in the UK market. So we've signed a contract with BAE UK, and that is to do some alloy qualification work and part manufacture for them. And we look to further that relationship into the UK market as we develop. In terms of the US engagement strategy, I won't go through this in a lot of detail, but we've got stakeholder engagement, advocacy, and communication strategy programs running that tie into the NDAA and the Appropriations Committee so that we're always sort of aligned and we're always tracking where those budgets are being released in terms of tapping into additive spend in defence as we grow. The last thing that I'd like to mention is we were privileged enough to receive a letter from the US Navy, and it was a letter of intent. The letter of intent actually noted from the US Navy to AML3D, noting that AML was pivotal to the program of additive manufacturing. It also gave us guidance of the quantity of systems that they were looking for, and quantity of parts. So they gave us guidance that they're looking for around 100 systems, which for us in contract value terms is somewhere between 150 and 200 million. They also gave us guidance on the number of parts they're looking for us to produce, which is around 400 parts in FY26, growing to about 600 parts in FY30. So, and they also noted that there'll be further materials characterization work that will be undertaken. So for us, that was a major sort of stepping stone in terms of getting the demand signals from the US Navy so that we can invest 30 million that we had raised back in November with confidence in the US. And in fact, as of yesterday, we've approved the doubling of the capacity of the US facility. So that will be initiated over the course of the next sort of 3 months. So on that note, I'd like to leave it there and take any questions from the floor.
Thanks, Sean. We have a couple of questions coming in there just while you were presenting. I'll just take them here. First one, can you share an expected timeline for the establishment of your UK facility, or is it going to be an IP, license agreement where BAE can kind of produce it at their own facility?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So there are a couple of legs to that. We've on the sales front, we've signed an agreement with a company called Arc Additive in the UK, and they'll be our sales representatives in the UK. For the manufacturing work we're doing for BAE UK, we'll be doing that out of Australia. And we'll probably continue to do that until we land at least 2 or 3 sales of ARCEMYs in the UK. Once we've landed those sales, then we'll look at establishing a facility in the UK. And that's most likely going to be in conjunction with Arc Additive, we would imagine.
Okay. One on the competitive landscape, specifically how many players currently offer small containerized 3D printing solutions, and is there any inroads being made with the Australian defence sector in your area, given it's kind of been a proven technology now by the fact that the US is taking it.
Yeah, so again, a good question. So in the US, our main competitor is a company called Lincoln Additive. So Lincoln Additive is a subsidiary of Lincoln Electric. So Lincoln Electric is a $12 billion NASDAQ listed company. They're quite large, and they've got a fleet of robots that are doing robotic welding and parts manufacture together with us for the US Navy. Now, one of the differences between us and Lincoln is that Lincoln don't sell systems. So we sell complete turnkey systems, and we do contract manufacturing, where Lincoln only does contract manufacturing. And in terms of the work that we're doing in Australia, we've completed some work for BAE Australia. It was actually a bolster ring for one of the Hunter class frigates. So we produced that, and we've only just completed that piece of work. We're also in the process of completing a tail piece under license from the US Navy to ASA, so the Australian Submarine Association here in Australia, which we're doing work on at the moment. But what I can say is that I think the bulk of the investment in additive technology is actually occurring in the US. And we're not seeing anywhere near the same sort of investment in Australia. But what we do believe is that through the AUKUS program, we're starting to see the sharing of information and the desire to want to manufacture in all three countries, which is now starting to become pretty prevalent in terms of the discussions that we're having.
Okay. I think you touched on this, but maybe just to cover it off quickly, Sean, timeline for a US patent. I think you said at the outset, maybe they just missed that slide, that you have patents in place already.
Yeah, well, we've had the patent lodged for about a year and a half in the US.
Okay, so you're waiting for it to
So
come
we,
back.
we are sort of hoping that it would be this year for it to be lodged. We do recognize that once you get patents lodged and approved in countries or jurisdictions like Australia and Europe, it then tends to become a bit easier to get it in the US because you've already set a precedent for it. So we hope to get that US patent out hopefully later this year.
There it is, yeah. Okay, we'll keep an eye out for that. Another one then, your primary competitors in the large scale wire arc additive manufacturing space currently? And does your technology or commercial strategy differentiate from theirs? So maybe a little compare and contrast there.
Yeah, I got to say we don't really compete with people. So the majority of the work that we have bid, in fact, all of the work we've bid except for one tender was sole sourced. So, and that includes the government work that we're doing with the US Navy. That's all been sole sourced to us, and that wasn't a competitive bid. There was only one bid that we did compete against, and I believe it was Lincoln Additive that was in that bid process, and that was with a company called Tennessee Valley Authority. They went out to a competitive bid process. So, what you find is that there aren't actually that many wire arc technology companies in the market. There are a lot of powder bed fusion technology companies in the market, but not necessarily wire arc.
Sorry, Sean, I'm just having issues with my video here. Another question on the 9 million that is, carrying over from last year. Do you expect all of that to be delivered in FY26, or is some of that going to take longer to complete?
No, we expect it all to be delivered in FY26.
Okay, and then another question around the R&D. Is that going into new products, or is it part of the scale up and optimization and commissioning of the US facility?
No, it's actually a new product. So
Okay.
what we're seeing in the US is and we noticed this going back 2 years ago when we went into the US market, is they want to print big and they want to print fast. So the technology that we're developing now is dual wire and dual robot printing. So what we'll effectively have is two robots printing from either end and it'll have two wire or dual wire heads on it so we can print twice as fast. So a good example is we've got deposition rates of about 2 to 5 kilos a minute, and we'll be doing somewhere in the order of about 12. So it's going to speed the process up considerably.
Okay. Um,
Probably the other thing I should add is that what 2.4 million, 1.2 million of that is government funded as well through a government grant. So that's a state government grant.
okay. Yeah, a question here on the importance of the AUKUS partnership. But, as we know with a lot of these government programs, they're committed, but it can take a while for things to actually start flowing and start happening. Um, from what you're seeing now, do you kind of expect a pipeline and revenue that's coming, you know, from these like government programs and what they're trying to do under AUKUS to um I guess go according to what they've told you at this point in time?
Yeah, it's actually progressing. Look, it's taken a little while to set up the manufacturing license agreements to share the information between the three regions. But what I can say is we're in discussions as we speak at the moment with the US Navy to produce parts here in Australia as well as in the UK as well as in the US under the AUKUS arrangement. And what we understand is that'll be funded by AUKUS funding to be able to do that. So they're definitely moving in that direction, and we're starting to see the relaxing of what you would typically have as walls of information between the countries starting to sort of open up and share, which is really quite positive.
Um, in terms of the the product suite now, it's extremely focused on the military side of things. But is there a possibility of using it in a more commercial space? I'm just thinking of you talking about looking at the army and stuff for vehicles there. Is there any crossover to into the commercial space? Whether that's
Yeah.
in commercial shipbuilding.
So a good is when we opened up the US office, we won our first contract in the energy sector with a company called Tennessee Valley Authority. It's one of the largest power generators in the US. And what they wanted to do was they wanted to repair parts and manufacture parts for power generation and then moving to the nuclear sector as well. So we've just about finished installing that system at Tennessee Valley Authority. And they've engaged us to do a lot of the materials qualification work for them, which we're doing out of our Ohio facility. So there's certainly opportunity there. The other thing I'd mention is we've got a full-time business development resource focused in the US just on oil and gas and aerospace as well, because we see the huge opportunities in that sector for additive.
Okay, great. And Sean, if we talk about major milestones over the next 6 months or so, what should shareholders and potential shareholders be on the lookout? Is it the US patent and a bit more progress on the UK operations? Is that kind of the key things to keep an eye on for shareholders moving forward?
I think the main catalyst for us is going to be landing a major system sale under the US Navy.
Okay.
So under the letter of intent, we should see, a fairly large orders start to flow from that. And we should also see orders flow on parts as well in the US, in particular for defense, because that's really where the bulk of the expenditure we see for additive sort of occurring, over the next sort of few years.
Okay. Well, we shall keep an eye out for those, and yeah, hopefully maybe we can get you back in later in the year. I know we were speaking offline just before we started. You've got another trip over to the US post results, so maybe we can chat once you're back from your latest trip to the US in maybe October, November, and you can give us an update on how
Mhm.
things are progressing over there.
Sounds good.
All
Thanks,
right,
Mark.
Sean. Thank you very much for coming back in and joining us this morning. And I wish everybody a good rest of their Thursday. Thank you.